Hi everyone, my name is Siamak and this is my geosynthetics podcast. In this episode, I have another special guest and I have Eric Blond that is in Australia and talking with us today. Welcome to the podcast, Eric.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. So, Eric, I think similar to our other podcast episodes, I want to start with your career. Where did you start as an engineer or as a scientist, and how did you end up in geosynthetics industry?
How did I end up in the geosynthetic industry? So it's completely accidental, as probably is the case for many of us. What happened exactly that I moved to Canada from France in 1992.
Yeah.
And at that time, so it was before the numeric era, I sent 140 resumes. I was a geotechnical engineer.
Okay.
And I got 2 negative answers because I was not in the group. So I had I realized at some point that I had to study. I had to study more. The reason for this very negative environment is that it was just the end of the James Bay hydroelectric complex, and it was the end of the project. There was thousands of geotechnical engineers back on the market without a job, and me arriving fresh from another country, there was no way I would make it through. So I decided to go to study at École Polytechnique, and I did a master thesis. And in this very negative environment, there was one person that stood out. One person who is Jacek Młynarek, who was my professor at the time, and who was saying, it's a difficult time these days, but there is one industry that is still growing, even if this turmoil, very hard times, the geosynthetic industry is still taking markets, is still growing, there is still more things to do, new developments. People are happy. Well, it was really like a very, very positive lookout on the market. So 10 minutes later, I was in his office and I was telling him, I want to work with you.
Yeah.
And so that's how we started.
Nice.
I started to do my master thesis in filtration.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. From there, I started to work with him when he took the leadership on the CGOs. I followed him shortly after, and we've been working together for 20 years.
Nice.
And in 2018, I decided to leave the group and to start my own services. But really, how I started, it was really because of the positive approach, positive vision, and actually true vision, because the geosynthetics industry has grown tremendously in the last 25, 30 years. And if we look at the growth of the geosynthetic industry versus the growth of construction activities in general, it's much better, much higher.
Yeah, massive growth in geosynthetics applications around the world. And
I was actually also blessed to be as a satellite from Solmax. Solmax is actually a similar thing. It's a leader, Jacques Côté, a true leader who started from nothing and built this massive company. And our group was just 30 kilometers away. I live myself in Montreal, which is also 30 kilometers away. So it's like the triangle.
Yes, yeah.
And it was really interesting.
Perfect. Yeah, and Jacques has been on my podcast. So for those listeners who want to hear Jacques' story of how he started in geosynthetics.
Voilà.
Very, very nice story there. And so you started doing providing your own services since 2018, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And you've been traveling to Australia a couple of times in the past few years.
Yes.
Except COVID time, but I think you were here just before COVID. We had a geomembrane workshop with ASICS. And then, tell us more about your travels, especially when you come to Australia, and what brought you to Australia this time?
Yeah, you're right. I was in Australia. Actually, I took a flight which was 1 week, late March, 1 week before the closure of every border. Right. So it was really just before the end. And this time I came because I have done interesting work on bituminous geomembrane seams, which was presented at GeoNZ last week. And thank you, by the way, for your really good work with the organizing committee and for GeoAsia coming up. So this work it was an opportunity to present this at this conference.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you want me to go into the technical details of my work?
Yeah, probably just a brief,
Yeah. So yeah, bituminous geomembranes are having a lot of success in Australia and elsewhere actually, and sometimes it raises questions, and some questions are not answered, or at least not answered yet. And I had the opportunity to work on the problem of seams. And what I found out, in fact, was that the seams of the bituminous geomembranes are basically a seal. It's not a weld, it's a seam. The two panels are sealed together with bitumen. And the problem with that is that when there is a stress across the seam, the bitumen is the material which is holding the two panels together. But bitumen is a viscous product. So that means that if there is a stress, the stress will disappear. And by disappearing, that means it needs to release the stress, and that means elongation. And long story short, when the bituminous geomembrane seam is exposed to a stress, that means it will eventually open up. So that would be really the very quick summary of my work, which poses some problems in geotechnical engineering, because there is always settlements in geotechnical structures. And so these seams, when exposed to two big settlements, may just be a serious problem. So I had the opportunity to present that last week, and I thought I would jump on the occasion to come back and visit my friends.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, for sure. And I think, like you said, different types of geomembranes have been used for various types of applications.
Nothing is magic.
Exactly. There's no one size fits all. So yeah, I mean, doing research and doing investigation into these things is really interesting.
Absolutely, and I should actually mention that bituminous membranes have been used successfully in the roofing industry for 50 years. Usually they're replaced every 10 to 20 years, but it's never, the seams are not a problem on roofs. It's really something which is specific to geotechnical.
That's right. Very good. So also, Eric, you've also been quite active in various industry associations. So I'm aware of your activities within the IGS, the Hydraulics Technical Committee, and also a lot of activity that you've been doing in the many years of engagement with different standardization associations like ASTM and so on. That's my next question. If you tell us about your activities there, and what are maybe some of the new ones that you're busy with.
I'm a true believer in the role of these associations, these coordinated approaches to technical issues in technical associations like IGS and standardization. I think first it creates some platform to think together on the big problems of this world. What do we need to resolve? How can we contribute to a better world? And with standardization, we develop the tools which are going to be critical and essential for regulatory reasons. Our industry is going through, so I think most of the people listening to your podcast are very aware of how geoscientific can contribute to environmental things, to carbon reduction and so on, so I don't think I want to spend time on that. But one thing which is interesting and which is coming in the next years is I can imagine that there will be more consolidation in the industry. We've seen Solmax developing as a major corporation. In our world, it's a big company. In the construction industry, it's still a small company. Like if you think, I don't want to give particular name, but if you think of any big company that we see in the building industry, in the construction world, they are all much bigger than Solmax. So we're only at the beginning of a process where geoscientific manufacturers are going to get together and create bigger cooperation. That's going to create also a possibility for our industry to think not in terms of my product is better than my neighbor, but more in terms of lobbying power. How can we influence regulations? How can we influence standard practice, building code, design standards? Geoscientics should be in every design standards. The IGS is doing an interesting effort, the educator, to have at least the academic trained so they know what geosynthetics are and have the basics. But the next step is really to put that into standards, into construction standards. In Canada, we have the Building Code of Canada, which defines a number of things for buildings. Geosynthetics are all over the place, by the way, for foundation, etc. But we need to go much further, and that's going to take tools like our associations and like standards. So ASTM is one of them. ISO is doing a lot of work on microplastics and on sustainability. It's a question by the European Commission, and it's being answered. The European Commission asked the CEN TC 189 to answer a number of questions on microplastics, on carbon, on toxic substance, etc., etc. So these groups are really essential to the growth of our industry, and I want to be part of that. That's all. It's really about changing the world.
Exactly. No, that's very, very important. And you mentioned about the role of these associations and standardization organizations in solving problems such as sustainability, which is a very big topic at the moment around the world. We're talking about this. What do you think is the future with those associations being able to provide some sort of solutions for issues such as sustainability?
Well, sustainability, the first thing is to define what it's going to be exactly. What are the concerns which are going to be addressed and selected? There is a lot of politics at the end, defining which way we choose we're going to be eaten. Is it short term with carbon? Is it long term with microplastic and toxic substance? We need to find some balance here. I think that if we don't cross the next 10 or 20 years, we're going to be into bigger problem than if we eat some microplastics. So I'm a big fan of supporting carbon reduction, giving it a priority. But it's going to take to have some balance. Other groups are very strong, and I like to say that we may be engineers, we may be right in what we say. If an engineers always want to be right, so we may be right in our vision. At the end of the day, political decisions are taken by politicians, and it's all about votes, and therefore we need to fight at a level where we're going to influence politicians with a number of votes. An Instagram influencer, with the hat on the side, etc., will have more power on a politician than we have. So that's why communication, standardization, establishing some high-profile information that will be heard as coming from a large group, that is much more important than to be right and to have the right solution. So communication is the key. Industry association, partnering with other industry associations is also critical. I've done a lot of things with ICID to try to develop better visibility for geosynthetics in the canal lining and water containment for those considerations. And if they get convinced that what we do is good, they will have more power on regulatory authorities than we may have, or at least the two of us may have together more power. So it's that's really how I think we have a chance to progress and do something good.
No, that's interesting. I mean, the future is really, like you said, social media. How people can influence the politicians to generate rules and regulations that are going to be hopefully in long term solve some of those issues.
And don't take my example. I'm very bad at social media.
Maybe this podcast helps with that. And my final question, Eric, is about your career and your highlights throughout the years that you work in the industry. What do you think that highlight is, and why is that your highlight?
My highlights on the personal level, you mean, or as a professional level?
Professional, and then we'll talk about personal.
I think I'm really proud of the work I'm doing now with the ICID. I'm contributing in my capacity, which is very small compared to.
And sorry for my audience, that's International Committee on irrigation?
Oh, sorry. International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage.
Irrigation and Drainage.
So this is a group, this is a national representation. It's an international group with national representation by country, and who are discussing the big high altitude problems associated with irrigation and drainage in the context of agriculture. So it's about food production, providing enough food for the world, managing water for a variety of reasons. So it's not really geotechnical and structures. It's more food and well-being of humanity. It's and it's not at all. When I say well-being of humanity, some people may think it's a bit naive. No. It's not naive. It's very practical, very pragmatic, oriented toward delivering the better world for everybody from a food and water perspective at the end of the day. So, So anyway, in this industry, I'm collaborating with JP Giroux and Hervé Brusquelec on a book. Full disclosure, they're writing, I'm revising, and I'm contributing with inputs of this and that. But I think this book will be a landmark for this industry to help our industry grow and become more visible in the ICID world. And again, it's about creating document, creating information that can be used to promote what we do on a larger scale.
That's right.
So yeah, that's
and then on the personal level, what are your hobbies? Maybe a couple of things that you spend time when you're not busy at work.
The thing I'm lucky, lucky from a personal perspective, unlucky from a carbon perspective. But I'm traveling probably more than average. Okay. And that gets me to many places in the world, and I love photography.
Nice.
Like I came here with 3 bags. One bag was with clothing, another bag was with computer and work thing, and the backpack was for the camera.
Okay.
So I love photography, and I spend a lot of time playing with my things at a different level. So yeah, I love photography.
That's great.
Yeah.
So maybe your Instagram page.
No, because
to publish the photos.
I'm more into buildings, people, stuff like that. So I actually don't apply it to what we do. Yeah, I do macro photography. So macro photography of geoscientific structures. That's actually interesting. Yeah,
interesting.
To observe failure modes. It's very, very relevant, but also it's actually aesthetics.
Exactly.
It's beautiful.
It is nice. It is. Very good. No, thanks very much, Eric, for spending time with us here in this podcast, and I thank the audience and listeners and people who watched us on YouTube. We catch up with you in our next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.